Today I'm going to be talking about King Henry VIII. Pretty bad guy. Killed a lot of people, including his wives. He's the one that had a lot of wives and started the Church of England. Let's go. But King Henry VIII, terrible guy, one of England's most famous kings. So let's delve into this. So King Henry VIII wasn't even supposed to be king, because he only became king because his older brother Arthur died. So it gets kind of awkward because he marries his dead brother's wife. She's widowed and he marries her. And her name was Catherine of Aragon. She was Princess of Spain. And they did this on purpose so their son would be kind of leader of Spain and England, hopefully. They're married for 20 years, and he's upset because she only bears him a daughter, and it's one daughter. He wanted a son. Now, my history teacher said this at the beginning of the year. The number one job of a king was to have a son. And then, then you focus on the other stuff. And he needed a son so he could have an heir, so his son could be king, and she didn't give that to him. So he's like, let's divorce. And so he goes to the Pope, and he's like, hey, Pope, I want to get a divorce. And he's like, oh, wait, dude, I like you, but you can't do that. And, what's he going to do? They're the only church, and, divorce wasn't really an acceptable thing in the Catholic Church. And he goes, screw you guys, I'm going to create my own church. And he does, and that's the Church of England. He really creates his own church. And in this new church, he divorces Catherine of Aragon and marries Anne Boleyn. And she's like, I'm going to give you a son. He's like, frick yeah. And a little rebellion popped up after this, a Catholic rebellion, really. And he kind of just executed everybody that was a part of it to stop it. Very violent guy. And Anne Boleyn has a daughter and not a son. It's Elizabeth, who will be Queen Elizabeth, later on. And he's just outraged. I don't have a son. I want a son. I want a son. I don't have a son. And this kind of makes him go crazy, So as any normal person would do, he has his wife executed, and Anne Boleyn has her head chopped off. And then, not even 2 weeks after that, he gets married again to Jane Seymour. And, he considered her to be, his one true love. He loved her more than his other wives. And maybe because she gives him a son. Yeah, he's got a prince now. But she dies 12 days later. And then he marries 2 other people, but they're kind of insignificant compared to the other ones. So now that I talked about his wives and him, I want to go back and talk about some of the things he did. So let's go back to before he started the Church of England. So, he wasn't really running this whole thing. He had another guy do it for him while he played sports and music and stuff like that. But he did do one thing, and he wrote, in defense of the 7 sacraments. And this was kind of defending the Catholic Church from Protestants. And the Pope was like, dude, thanks for doing that. These guys are really bothering us. I'm going to give you a cool title, Defender of the Faith. So, flash forward a little bit. He's married to his dead brother's wife. And before you ask, yes, the one that he divorced and started a new church so he can divorce her. He founded the Navy. Before that, it was just kind of a few ships, stuff like that. It wasn't anything very official. And so you're not confused, this is late 15th, early 16th century, or late 1400s, early 1500s. And he also went to Wales and said, yeah, this is mine now. I want it. And, he annexed it. And now we're getting to the point where, he's starting to get sick of Catherine. Because she gave him one daughter. Now, she gave him other children, but... And, she gave him a few other children, but they all died in childbirth, or died a few days after. Yeah. And, he wanted, a living child, so, and a boy, and the only one that lived was a girl, so he didn't really... And this is why I only mentioned the one daughter, because, all the other kids didn't live to do anything at all. And about around the time he marries Anne Boleyn, he starts going into a fit of madness. And he marries 5 women, still within less time that he was married to his first wife. So he's married to his first wife longer than he was married to all his other wives combined. And he had 2 of them executed for reasons. And he also pretty much bankrupted England. Like, he inherited a certain amount of, like, castles and fancy buildings, stuff like that. Now, double the amount he got, and that's how many more he built. And he built, like, 40. Also started wars with a ton of other people because reasons. Towards the end of his life, he gains a ton of weight because he can't move around as much because he has a injury in his leg, and people even started wearing like clothing like that was thick or padded to make him like feel better about himself and stuff like that. And eventually he dies, and to that son that he had, so boom, Prince to King 50 to 100. Now we're here. He becomes king at 9 years old, rules until he's 16, and he gets really sick and dies. So he names his gal named Jane as his heir. And then she's executed a few days later. Now who rules? Mary, King Henry VIII's daughter, with Catherine of Aragon. And so she was queen, and then like kind of the co-ruler was her husband Philip. And then they ruled for around 5 years, and they died. And now who rules? Elizabeth I, who I talked about earlier. She's now queen. You probably know about her. I'm not going to talk about her now because that's for another day. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, I'm going to put my Snapchat right here so you can watch my history lessons in advance. Thanks for watching, and yeah, hope you learned something.